Hello class. Now we today will discuss about our components of blood, where we will talk about our WBCs and our platelets. In the previous class we have discussed about our red blood cells in detail. Now the turn is for our WBCs and platelets, and we will see the same structures and functions and their classification and their mechanism of clotting and all these things now in this particular video. So we begin with our WBCs. Okay, so when we talk about WBCs, we should know that they are the white blood cells. Okay, and they are also known as our leukocytes. We can see out here that they are known as your leukocytes. Now if we look at its structure, we will see that they do have nucleus, whereas in RBCs there were no nucleus, but WBCs they have nucleus and their lifespan is about 2 weeks. All right, now in WBCs we say white blood cells, not red blood cells. So since it is white blood cells, so we cannot expect the presence of any kind of our pigments over there, so therefore no hemoglobin. If we talk about its number and our number occurrence in our body compared to RBCs, they are much less. And if you talk about the shape, they are amoeboid shape, that means irregular shape. And when we talk about amoeba, you know that they can have pseudopodia, yes or no? They have the false feet with the help of which they move. So same here in this case, that is the WBCs, they are amoeboid shape and they can produce pseudopodia, that's a false feet. Okay, that is your false feet, which will help them to squeeze through the walls of the capillaries and reach wherever there is their requirement actually. Okay, and if you talk about its origin, the WBCs, therefore they are produced in the red bone marrow. So if you look at it, so we can just say that it's a leukocytes. Okay, WBCs, the other name for white blood cells is leukocytes. They have nucleus and their lifespan is about 2 weeks compared to RBCs. If you see, they do not have nucleus and the lifespan is roughly about 120 days. Now out here in WBCs, we can see that they do not have any hemoglobin present in them. As such, they are white in color. If we look at the number, it is found to be much lesser than the RBCs, and if you look at the shape, it's amoeboid, whereas in case of your RBCs, their shape was biconcave disc shaped. Okay, and look at what is the function of the pseudopodia. It helps them to squeeze through the walls of the capillaries. Okay, and therefore origin, they are produced in bone marrow, red bone marrow. Okay. Moving on to the next, we come to our classification of WBCs, that is based upon the presence or absence of granules, alright, within the cytoplasm of these cells, white blood cells. They are classified into two major groups, that is number one, our granulocytes, and number two is our agranulocytes. Okay, before we move on to this, let me just take you back to the slide out here. We said one thing out here, that they produce pseudopodia, which helps them to squeeze through the walls of capillaries. Okay, now this squeezing through the walls of capillaries in case of WBCs, it's known as your diapedesis. Okay, so you're going to find it out what is diapedesis in detail. Okay, so the WBCs, they are of two types. We have granulocytes and agranulocytes. Why we are saying granulocytes and agranulocytes? This is because if the WBCs show the presence of granules in their cytoplasm, then we will say that particular WBC is granulocyte. But if the WBCs, they do not show the presence of granules in the cytoplasm, then they are agranulocytes, which means that we have certain WBCs, okay, which shows the presence of granules, and there are certain WBCs which do not show the presence of granules. Okay, look at here. We can see out here in case of eosinophils, basophils and neutrophils, you can see these granules present in the cytoplasm. So these three, basically these are the three types of WBCs which are granulocytes. Okay, when we look at our lymphocytes and your monocytes, they do not have those granules present within them, and you can see they have a single large nucleus out here. Okay, whereas look at here, the nucleus is lobed. You can see 3 lobes in this case, you can see out here. Okay, and here also bilobed structures. You can see that the nucleus is lobed in these 3 cases. But when we look at here in monocytes and in our lymphocytes, we can see that the nucleus is large and is not lobed, and we can see there are absence of granules in their cytoplasm. So therefore, monocytes and lymphocytes, they are agranulocytes, whereas eosinophil, basophil and neutrophil, they are our granulocytes. Okay, so please keep in mind, granulocytes, there are three types, that is your eosinophil, basophils and neutrophils. And when we talk about our agranulocytes, we have our monocytes and lymphocytes. Okay, so moving on to the discussion in detail about these granulocytes and granulocytes. When we talk about them, we have our neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil. We can see they are placed under the granulocytes. Okay, so if we talk about neutrophils, okay, like what is their abundance in our blood, so you will see that it's 62%. How much it is? 62% in case of our neutrophils. Right, when we move on, okay, to its distinguishing features of neutrophils, then you can obviously see out here, okay, that the nucleus has 3 to 4 lobes. You can see out here 3 to 4 lobes. All right, and the cytoplasm is granular. You can see granules present in the cytoplasm. And if you stain this, okay, then you can stain only with the help of neutral dyes. You can stain such WBCs with the help of only neutral dyes, the dyes which is neither acidic nor basic. So you will use neutral dyes, okay, to stain it. So you will see that the color that it shows, okay, will be what? You can see it out here in the image itself. So since we are staining it with neutral dyes, so that's why it is known as your neutrophil. Remember this, okay? And the function of this neutrophil is to engulf bacteria, that is phagocytosis, okay, or you can say phagocytize of your bacteria. Am I clear? So therefore, what do? They engulf the bacteria. They will digest them. That is called your cell eating. That is called phagocytosis. So you're going to find out what is phagocytosis as a definition in your homework. Now moving on to eosinophil. When we move on to eosinophil, if you look at or talk about its abundance, then it's 2 to 3% only. Alright, and it will increase, the count of these eosinophils in your blood will increase. That means whenever you suffer from any kind of allergic reactions, that time if you go for blood test, how we will know that you have whatever is happening to you is because of an allergy? Because the eosinophil count will be shown more in your blood. So whenever the eosinophil count is shown more in the blood, which means that you are suffering from certain kind of allergies. If you look at its nucleus, you can see that it is bilobed structure. And looking at, again, you can see that the cytoplasmic granules are there, but they are larger. And you will see that they can stain with which color dye? That means they can stain with red eosin dye, EOSIN, eosin dye, okay. As a result of which it is red in color, you can see out there. And this dye is actually acidic in nature. Alright. Now the function of this particular eosinophil is to again engulf the bacteria, secrete antitoxins, and it is associated with our allergy. Next comes our basophils, where we can see that the nucleus is large, indistinctly lobed, because you cannot make out how many lobes are there present out here. So the lobing of the nucleus is indistinct out, you cannot make out, and therefore you can see that they are blue to purple cytoplasmic granules. Why? Because they just stain with basic dyes, and the basic dyes such as your methylene blue. So methylene blue is a basic dye, and once it takes up the stain, obviously it will become blue in color. The eosinophil takes the red dye, that is eosin, okay, and it's acidic in nature, so it shows red color. And over there the neutral dye is there, and you can see that the mixture of two over there, that is your red as well as your blue. That means the neutral dyes will be somewhat of that color, okay. Then coming on to its function, okay, so the function of basophils is to release chemicals, and the main chemical that it releases is your histamine. Please remember, okay, this histamine is what? It is for inflammation, which dilates the blood vessels, okay. And if you talk about the production of all these three, that is neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils, where they are produced, then they are produced in the bone marrow. Remember that. Moving on to our non-granular or agranulocyte, okay, that is the cytoplasm without granules. In case of these WBCs, we will see that we have two types. We have our lymphocytes and our monocytes, okay. If you look at this monocyte over here, you can see, okay, that the nucleus is large and kidney shaped. At the site of infection, they will transform into macrophages. So these monocytes, okay, look at this nucleus, it's kidney shaped, okay, like a bean shaped, okay, kidney bean shaped it is. Alright, and you can see it's large also, the nucleus, and wherever there is infection, they will just transform themselves. That means these monocytes will change into macrophages, okay. Macrophages they are also going to help in your defense mechanism. You have to remember that much. And if we look at lymphocytes, then lymphocytes, they are the smallest of the WBCs. Look at the size over here. They are the smallest of all the WBCs, and they have a single large nucleus, you can see out here. And if you talk about its function, then it produces antibodies. And where it is produced, if you look at it, it's produced in the bone marrow and lymph glands. Lymph glands means those are glands, okay, associated with your lymphatic system, like spleen, tonsils, etc. So this is all about the different types of white blood cells. After they stain, how they look like, what is their function, what is their distinguishing features, and where it is produced. Okay, so you have to keep these things in your mind. And looking at the top, we have our erythrocytes, that is, you can see that's RBC, which we have talked about it in the previous class video. And looking at the bottom, that is platelets, that is, we are going to discuss about it now in this video. That's further we are going to discuss about it. So I hope this is clear to you. Looking at the structures, you should be able to distinguish between which one is a neutrophil, which one is a eosinophil, which one is a basophil. So sometimes, you know, the diagrams are given and you're asked to identify. So I would request you all to please practice this diagram along with its distinguishing features, okay, from your book itself, and even the functions you are going to learn and where it is produced, you should know. Okay, so all are in bone marrows. Okay, all of them are produced in bone marrow except for the lymphocyte. If we talk about here, this lymphocyte, it is produced in bone marrow along, as well as it is also produced in your spleen and tonsils, that is your lymph glands. All right, whereas the rest of them are produced in bone marrow. You can see these are granulocytes, these are agranulocytes. You can talk about the nucleus. In case of neutrophils, you can see 2 to 3. Out here you can see 2 lobes, and out here indistinct lobes. Out here one single large nucleus, a kidney bean shaped nucleus. Looking at it only, you should be able to write which one is what. Okay, and then after identifying, you'll be asked questions based on that. Okay, so moving further, we can talk about the functions of our WBCs. Okay, when we are going to talk about the functions of our WBCs, we will first take into consideration, that is its defense mechanism, that is phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is nothing but is actually the process in which most of the WBCs will participate, and particularly, you know, which one? The neutrophils, which we talked about, they are going to participate, because we saw in the previous slide that its function is to engulf, okay, the foreign substance, especially the bacteria. So this is actually what? It's a defense mechanism against disease germs. An abnormal increase in WBC count up to, let's say, 50,000 more, okay, per cubic millimeter will indicate some kind of infection in your body. Remember that. So phagocytosis means what is the cell eating? That means these WBCs will go and bring about the engulfment of the foreign substance, especially the bacteria that enters your body to invade and cause disease. Moving on to the next function, that is inflammation. So the word inflammation, you know what it is all about. You must be having a general idea about inflammation. So when does this inflammation occurs in a body? It occurs due to the reaction of the tissues, okay, to injury and to localized invasion of the germs. So you should remember, as soon as the germs enter your body, they do not cause, like, they are not directly eliminated out. Okay, so when they enter the body, after entering, they do harm certain tissues and your cells, okay, as a result of which your body will then recognize it as a foreign substance, and by the time the antibodies are produced, it does little bit of harm into your body cells. Okay, so remember that. So inflammation will occur due to what? Whenever there is a reaction of the tissues to the injury and to localized invasion of your germs. Now, wherever the germs has entered and the tissue destruction of your body has take place, that spot will get inflamed. That means a local heat, redness, swelling, pain, etc. might take place over there. So here the leukocytes, especially which one I'll tell you, the monocytes and the neutrophils will migrate through the walls of the blood vessels by the process of diapedesis. That means this is a kind of your WBC. So obviously they have the ability to squeeze out and move out, right? So remember that. Okay, and they fight against these germ causing diseases, and then they will just bring about their phagocytosis and bring about their total destruction. So I hope this inflammation is also Clear. That means whenever the germ will enter, it does harm to certain tissues and all, as a result of which, these neutrophils and your monocytes, which are the two types of, these are the two types of WBCs, okay, one is your granulocytes and one is granulocytes. They will squeeze out from the capillaries, reach to the site wherever they are needed, that is to fight against the germs, and wherever these things fighting will take place, local heat, because certain chemicals will be released, and this local heating, redness, swelling, and some kind of such effect, that is your inflammation will take place, and finally they will bring about the engulfment of these germs and then remove them from our body. Moving on to formation of antibodies, you all know that the WBCs, especially which one, it's your lymphocytes. Remember, lymphocytes, okay, will produce your antibodies, okay, which will kill or neutralize the germs, or it will even act as a poison for them. Okay, so whenever we introduce weakened germ or germ substance, that is a vaccine, okay, during vaccination, what does it do actually? It stimulates the formation of a particular antibody, which at a later period would destroy the particular disease causing germ if they enter into body again. So you should keep knowing and studying about vaccination too, because in vaccination we know that what do we introduce? We introduce weakened germs in our body. That vaccine contains what? Weakened germs. That means they cannot produce disease, but they are far better enough to produce antibodies, okay, in our body. So it will instigate the production of antibodies in our body, as a result of which, in future, whenever you are, okay, going to be infected, or whenever you get these germs, the germs get entry into your body, at that time instantly these antibodies will be produced, because the body will recognize it immediately as a foreign substance and remove it out. Remember that. So for formation of your antibodies, lymphocytes, inflammation, when we talk about, that is usually done by the neutrophils and the monocytes, and phagocytosis also is done by the neutrophils. Okay, now for your homework, what are antibodies and what are antitoxins? This you should find it out and let me know in my class where we do clear our doubts. Moving on to the next is our platelets. That is the last component of our blood, because we are going to discuss about this, and in the next video we will surely discuss about the blood grouping system, which will be a short video of about what are the blood grouping system and who discovered it and what are the rhesus factor, etc. Okay, let me come back. So when we talk about our platelets, we can say that they are initiators of clotting of blood. Okay, that means these platelets are responsible for your what? For your mechanism of clotting. Okay, if you look at it, they are round or oval structures and they are non-nucleated. They are also, now you have to remember this, they are derived from giant-like cells called megakaryocytes. There are certain giant cells called your megakaryocytes, and these giant cells will lead to the production of our platelets. Looking at this lifespan, you can see it's 3 to 5 weeks. Okay, so mechanism of blood clotting, that is very important from your ICSE point of view also. Okay, so how does this clotting take place? Okay, so it involves actually series of reaction in our body. And how does that happen? So let's discuss about it. Okay, so if we go stepwise, we should know, okay, that clotting occurs in a series of steps. The injured tissue cells, okay, the injured tissue cells and the platelets, which disintegrate at the site of the wound, will release a substance, okay, that is called your thrombokinase. Okay, this thrombokinase has other names also, like it's called thromboplastin, and it is also called your factor X or your Stewart factor. Please keep in mind. So wherever at the site of injury, you will see that these, okay, injured tissue cells, right, and the platelets will just disintegrate at the site of injury. Okay, they will just disintegrate at the site of your wound, and once that is done, they will release a chemical substance. Which substance? That is your thrombokinase. And this thrombokinase has other names, like you have to remember thromboplastin, factor X or your Stewart factor. Okay, now what will this thrombokinase do? So the thrombokinase actually, it will act as an enzyme, okay, and with the help of calcium ions, okay, which is present in our plasma, it will try to convert a particular substance, that is your prothrombin, which is inactivate in an inactive state in our body, into what? Into thrombin. Am I clear? So what happens at the first step? You can see that wherever there is injury, the tissue cells which are injured and the platelets, they will disintegrate. Once they disintegrate, okay, they will release a chemical substance, that is your thrombokinase. The other name for thrombokinase is thromboplastin, okay, or we even call it as factor X or Stewart factor. Now this thrombokinase, okay, with the presence or with the help of your calcium ions, which is already present in our plasma, they will bring about, okay, the conversion of your an inactive substance, that is prothrombin, to thrombin. Okay, now this thrombin will in turn go and bring about the conversion of your fibrinogen. Okay, this fibrinogen actually is a soluble protein in your plasma, you all know that, and this will be now converted into insoluble fibrin. Now this fibrin will form a mesh-like structure, that is a trap, mesh-like structure like a net it will form, and then the RBCs will not be able to squeeze itself outside, and therefore they get trapped and this clot is formed, and this is how bleeding stops. Am I clear? So these are the simple things that you have to remember. That means you should know that at the site of injury, what happens is that these particular your injured tissues and your platelets, okay, what will they do is that they will release, okay, this thrombokinase, a chemical, and these thrombokinase, once it is released, it will combine with your calcium ions, which is already present in the plasma of the blood, and then bring about the conversion of your prothrombin, okay, activator, which will convert your prothrombin to thrombin. Now this thrombin in turn will convert the fibrinogen into fibrin, and this fibrin will form a mesh-like structure in which the RBCs will get trapped, and this is how clot is formed. So you should know what is happening. So step by step this should be, you know, known to you, and you should not miss out anything or any point on this, because all these words whichever are given out in this flow chart, they are the keywords. If you know these sentences, or if you make this flow chart, if you are asked for mechanism of clotting for 3 to 4 marks, you should be able to get full 3 on 3. So please make a note of this, and it is very, very important from your ICSE point of view. So this is about your mechanism of clotting, okay. So these are the platelets you can see out here, and you know what is platelet plug formation. It's nothing but the same thing, that is a mesh like wire, that's a platelet plug, how it is formed. So you have to know that. Okay, so the clotting factors, that is which one is the clotting factors, actually it is your platelets, and the platelets and the injured cells will release certain chemicals, okay, and that chemical is what out here, it's known as thrombokinase, okay, or thromboplastin or Stewart factor or factor X. This will convert this prothrombin to thrombin. That means this factor X, Stewart factor, or also known as a thromboplastin or thrombokinase, will bring about the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin. Alright, am I clear? But there has to be something else present out here along with your clotting factors, that is your calcium ions. So calcium ions which are present in the plasma of the blood along with the clotting factor, that is your released it's going to release thrombokinase, together will bring about the conversion of this inactive prothrombin to thrombin. Then this thrombin will go and bring about the conversion of your fibrinogen, which is a soluble protein in our plasma, into fibrin, that is an insoluble protein, and this insoluble protein will form your what? That is called the platelet plug, that is a mesh-like wire will be formed. You can see out here this yellow mesh-like thing, that's like a net where the fish gets trapped. The same way out here the RBCs will get trapped and they cannot move out, and the blood oozing will stop. And this is how development of clot will take place. Am I clear? So please make a note of it. So damaged blood vessels, injury to vessel lining triggers the release of the clotting factor. Once these clotting factors are released, then you know that there will be formation of a plate plug and development of your clot. Please remember this. It is very, very important. If you can show this with the help of this diagram and the previous flow chart, then you will score full marks. So please make a note of all this. Alright, am I clear? Okay, so if we look at it once again, just a revision for your this mechanism of clotting of blood. So you should be knowing this flow chart. So at the site of injury, the tissue release platelets and clotting factors, and that clotting factor is actually a prothrombin activator. What is this called? This clotting factor is nothing but it's called thrombokinase, Stewart factor, factor X, alright, or thromboplastin. These are the other names for thrombokinase. So it is a clotting factor. So you will be asked in exam the clotting factor. So it's thrombokinase, please remember that, huh? And in the presence of calcium ions from the blood, will bring about the conversion of prothrombin activator, and then to prothrombin to thrombin, and then thrombin in turn converts the fibrinogen into fibrin. Fibrin will form a mesh-like structure in which the red blood cells will get trapped and clot is going to be formed and bleeding stops. All right, am I clear to you? And please look at this platelet plug formation. Am I done? Okay, so in the next class we will discuss about our blood grouping system. Thank you so much. I hope that you will understand it well and you will be able to learn.